the road of generations, joined by a common bond. We sing our song across the Pony Nation, from Equestria and beyond. We're apples forever, apples together. We're family, but so much more. No matter what comes, we will face the weather. We're apples to the core. There's no place that I'd rather be than traveling with my family. Friends all around come to join and sing as we sing out across the land. We're apples forever, apples together. We're family, but so much more. No matter what comes, we will face the weather. We're apples to the core.
Hello, and welcome to the Heroic Review. This is our episode review of Season 4, Episode 9, Pinkie Apple Pie. In this episode, Pinkie Pie discovers that she's related to the Apple family, and they go off on an adventure to see if there can be a fully functional group, which they can't. It was written by newcomer Natasha Levenger, and here to discuss it is my panel. I'm Deadlyreg, your moderator, and joining me is BrainedbySaucepans.
Hello there.
Goombasa.
Hello, all.
Greg.
Good morning all, or afternoon, or whatever time of day it is.
Grey.
Hola, amigos.
PDK.
안녕하세요.
Reverb.
Hello, everyone.
Swedely.
Howdy.
And Webshoter.
Hello.
Cool, blimey, it's a full panel this week.
It is a full panel this week. Starting with general opinions. Saucy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. For me, Season 4 is really starting to pick up, because at the beginning I was having my doubts, but with last week's episode and now this week's, it's hopefully setting a really good trend. I can't think of any major flaws with this at all.
Goombasa?
It was aight.
Good work.
I did very much enjoy this episode. It was very interesting to see the pairing of Applejack and Pinkie Pie for a change. And while I don't think we can effectively call this the first Pinkie Pie episode of the season, I do think it was a really good Applejack episode.
Well, it's the closest we get to an Applejack episode.
Hey, whoa, come on.
We've still got, 16 episodes to go? I'm pretty sure we'll get at least one other one.
15.
15, thank you.
Greg, your thoughts?
I definitely enjoyed this episode. It was, I don't know, it was all the right comedy. I just love the light comedy feel of it. And the interaction between characters really worked for me. Overall, definitely improving as the season goes on.
Grey?
I really liked this episode. It wasn't as over the top as these other episodes have been. It was a very nice, lighthearted episode, kind of true to MLP, if I may say.
PDK?
Yeah, as a huge Pinkie Pie fan, loved this episode. Yeah, I echo that it's nice to see Pinkie Pie and Applejack interact. And I'd be interested to see if anyone who doesn't like Pinkie Pie thought anything specific on how she was used, because I thought they weren't doing the over-the-top. The new writer really got the fun of Pinkie Pie without her being annoying, which I know is some critique on her more often than not.
Reverb?
I really loved this one. I mean, just like last week, and as some of you guys have said before, Season 4 is really starting to come into form for me as well. I love how it's becoming a little less overly comical. I think I might have said this last week as well, but I also love that in this episode it focuses on just two characters rather than shoehorning all of the rest of them into the story as well and just sort of having them along, and that was something I absolutely loved in this one. And yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed this episode.
Swedely?
I enjoyed a lot of things with this episode. I'm not going to go on record and say that it was the funniest episode, but it was thoroughly enjoyable, and I love that song. Ever since we had it from that San Diego con or wherever it came from, I have loved that song, and the whole episode in general I thought was pretty enjoyable.
Webshoter?
I really liked it. I had fun watching it, and as PDK said, Pinkie Pie was enjoyable. Not over the top, but still her. And honestly, in this episode, it looked like Pinkie Pie was actually, I don't want to say dumbed down to where she just does random stuff, but she was toned down, but she still had her brain back basically for a little bit.
Okay, personally, I, Deadlyreg, thought it was pretty good. It was very jolly, very upbeat. That's what I have to say on the subject. Okay, going to the free-for-all section. Where do we want to start?
I think a great place to start would be talking a bit more about the utilization of Pinkie Pie, because as people have pointed out, that was a big part of this episode, was the fact that she wasn't brain dead in this episode, which was great to see, because up until this point, a lot of people had been saying she had basically reverted back to her season 1 persona. And I personally didn't see that, but watching this episode and going back to the other episodes, I can see how her antics in the past episodes could seem more annoying than funny.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is how she's actually used in the episode, because while at the start it looks like she's going to be the focus of the episode, by no means is she a central figure. The role she's taking is more of a side character who's basically, she's there to the side commenting on the interaction between the Apple family, which is the core of the episode, if you'll pardon the unintentional pun there.
Something I really love about this episode is it doesn't particularly focus on one character's story exactly like, some of the other episodes have. It's sort of all of them. I really enjoyed that. And also something I think about Pinkie Pie is it feels like she's being a lot more sort of fourth wall breaking and out there this season than the last one.
She is definitely a difficult character to write without it turning annoying, I have to say.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who is another big fan of Pinkie Pie, for the most part. I'd have to say Natasha Levenger really got the character right and struck the exact right balance, in my opinion.
Enough zaniness with intelligence and enough intelligence to not outdo the zaniness.
Yeah, in a lesser kid show, I think this type of plot would involve Pinkie being a source of frustration for the family, rather than the narrative focusing on the family itself, and Pinkie just basically being along for the ride.
The core of the episode was, once again, though, the interaction between the family members. It was an episode about family, which is, sadly, once again, the closest we probably ever get to an actual Applejack episode, because whenever Applejack is the intended focus of an episode, it tends to sort of drift away from her.
Well, she's the only one with a canonical family, so if they want to do anything involving a family, they've got to go through her.
And it's hardly Applejack's fault that most of the rest of her family is, I hate to say this, but a more interesting character than her.
Boo.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that.
You mean that in a bad way.
I don't mean to insult Applejack.
I would disagree massively with that.
Maybe I worded that poorly, but I feel that Applejack hasn't been used as much as a family, and I think that's why they sometimes come across as more interesting, because they've had more opportunities to show on screen their personality and all.
Yeah, ironically, this is one of the first episodes where we really see interaction between the entirety of the Apple family. Most of the other episodes focusing on Applejack or having members of her family honestly do not portray them as the group that we see in this episode. Every once in a while, we have Applebloom and Big Mac, Applebloom and Granny Smith, Applejack briefly talking with Big Mac, but this is probably the most collective screen time the entire family has gotten, except for maybe Apple Family Reunion, and I don't count that episode because it was bad.
Hey, whoa.
What? Wait,
shut your
I
mouth
like
right
that
now.
episode.
That
was a good
episode
one.
was awesome.
It
I
was a
liked
bad episode, and I make no apologies for saying it.
Moving on before I slap you.
Moving on.
Well, something I quickly wanted to add is that in the past, I always thought we saw them always really getting along, and it was great to actually see some really natural family conflict.
Getting angry at each other for normal reasons.
They felt like an actual family. Remember, we also did have the Sister Who's Social, was it? The episode that also showed a bit of the family interaction, but this is the episode that sort of dragged the family interaction to the central core. I keep using the word core.
It's fine.
I don't mean to.
You are now banned from using the word core.
I enjoyed that there was a briefing with the Apple family, and Applejack more or less said, let's try to not let people know that we're all completely mental.
Yeah, the sad thing is I've had that exact conversation with my family members.
I think most people have had some sort of similar conversation at one point or another with their family.
There was one massively unrealistic part of the episode, though, and I have to say, I think shame on the writers for including it. And families don't make up and apologise. We just
Hey, I apologize to my family.
point the internet made was the element of honesty. Let's all lie about being a good family.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Hey, they are a good family. This is, whoever said this before, this is the first time we've seen them sort of fall apart as a family, isn't it?
Yeah.
The point is made that they don't fall apart as a family. They argue a shitload, but they're still a cohesive family unit at the end and throughout the entire episode.
Every time they were revealed to be a bit dysfunctional, Pinkie Pie was like, yeah, whatever.
She took it in stride, yeah.
She took it in stride because she's got her own family. She has she's nothing like her family. If the one glimpse we have of them is anything to go by, she's nothing like them. And that's adorable.
Good old igneous rock.
Of all the characters to not have a problem with a family being dysfunctional, it'd be her. I mean, God, she would go with the flow of anything.
It's nice that we can, that in character, even if we take the characters established, Pinkie Pie would be the character to tolerate the most, I think. All the rest of the characters are kind of more highly strung than her. Certainly if there'd been Twilight, there would have been lists, because they love to put lists when Twilight's around. So if there was going to be a character who was going to be there to tolerate a family that was massively dysfunctional, it would be Pinkie Pie.
Or Applejack, actually.
But as we've said, if there was going to be a family story, it's got to be Applejack.
I was just thinking, could you imagine how hilariously different this episode would be if it was actually Applejack who found out she was related to Pinkie Pie's family, and then they all went to her farm?
I don't think it'd be that different because they just put Applejack to work.
There would be no conflict.
Deadlyreg, I have to say, I do massively disagree with your characterization of the Apple family as dysfunctional.
That's true.
It's a word that you seem to be using a lot there, and once again, I don't think they're a dysfunctional family. They're a realistic one. They have arguments, but they stick together.
Well, that was kind of the moral.
Yeah.
Shall we just discuss the morals a bit? Because there was two sort of morals in this episode, I found at least.
Yep.
The first moral being that family sticks together, even if they don't get along, they'll still be there for each other at the end. The second moral was more that family is not necessarily all about being blood related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I just thought it was pretty interesting how in the beginning Applejack described everyone, her family, Apple Bloom being the playful one, Big Mac the strong one, and Granny Smith being the one who knows everything because she's been around the longest. And that all makes sense, and it's all stuff that we've seen before. But I just sort of thought it was funny how, going through the episode, they all sort of overplayed their part, like Big Mac overpacked so that he could show Pinkie Pie how strong he is. Apple Bloom wanted to seem fun, so she just started doing a little chant, but that ended up costing them the map. And Granny Smith wanted to show how much she knows and how wise she is by taking the path less traveled, but she feels like she knows better. So I don't know if that was intentionally written in for everyone to seem...
That was intentionally written in, I can guarantee. It was definitely an example of the fact that what defines a person is often sometimes their weaknesses. What they're good at also can be a problem later. And that was definitely intentional. And to show conflict in between families is usually that you can love your family but not really want to spend huge amounts of time around them because you start arguing. I think that was a decent metaphor for that.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice about all of them, if I could pick a trait that defined the apples as a unit, it would be stubbornness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stubborn pride. Stubborn pride is the Apple family. That should be their cutie marks.
Although, having said that, to a far lesser extent in Apple Bloom than the rest, but we've already seen that trait in her in the Cutie Mark Crusaders, which is the sort of microcosm of the social dynamics in the series as a whole. But I think she's just out stubborn by the rest of her family, and I just love how wonderfully that was played.
I was just wondering what we thought about the Apple family as individuals, because apart from Applejack and Apple Bloom, Granny Smith and Big Mac haven't really had a chance to really establish defined personalities, and what little snippets we have gotten sort of change from episode to episode where they're featured, or they're just made to be very generic family members most of the time.
I always thought that Granny Smith, especially in Family Appreciation Day, got a fair bit of characterization in that. I mean, that was pretty much all about her.
She did.
Well, that is true, yes, but again, she's sort of flanderized into just being the funny old person most of the time.
Yeah, she's the funny old person. She's the funny, crazy old person. If we remember from Family Appreciation Day and from Apple Family Reunion, she's zany fun, but also she's kind of annoying because she always thinks she's right.
Big Mac, though, had far less of a personality because he's always been defined basically as the quiet one.
Yep.
Strong, silent type.
Yeah.
With Big Mac, the first time we actually really meet him in Applebook season, he has, like, several lines of dialogue. He's talking for a couple of minutes. Like, the whole yup and nope thing that they gave him, that wasn't how he started out. He started out quite verbose. And they sort of flanderized him to those 2 lines. And they did a surprising amount with just those 2 lines, just a yep now and then, showing the stubbornness of his own convictions.
Well, don't forget, if anything, what was it? The gossip column episode, the
Gabby Gums.
Yeah, Gabby Gums. There was a moment where Big Mac and Applejack switched places where AJ would just say, AJ would say yep, nope, and Big Mac was the one with the words of wisdom at that moment.
Yeah, but I think that was mostly played for. Yeah, it was played for laughs, unfortunately.
Definitely.
No, it's been confirmed that he is really wise. I mean, they've actually said that numerous times.
Well, he's got he's got a micro series, and
not a micro series. He actually got a full 2-issue arc in the comments. That's absolutely hilarious. Called Zen and the Art of Gazebo Repair.
I really have to wonder, what is it that Pinkie Pie and Big Mac were talking about?
It's a noodle gag, Webshoter.
Nothing they give us will ever be as funny as what we imagine it to be. And that's the joke.
Exactly.
It's like when she said oatmeal, are you kidding me? During that huge argument. We're just left to wonder what she was talking about.
I really enjoyed how, throughout the whole episode, Big Mac did mostly stick to his whole yup and nope thing. And then the one time it looked like he was going to say more than that, he got shushed.
That was a nice
I
gag.
think that's a very important gag in the episode.
Although, don't feel like Peter New was snuffed out of having lines, because I just found out that he actually voiced Goldie Delicious.
No, really?
Really?
Wow. Really? Wow.
That's interesting. Okay, so in fact, getting to Gold Delicious, what do we think of the finale of the episode when we come
Crazy old hoarder
cat lady?
And surprise of surprises, the one page that has the information they want has a smudge on it.
So that's an interesting point. They didn't confirm or deny relations, so much as they didn't confirm or deny Scootaloo will fly. So really, this is they're hedging their bets a lot this season. They're having their cake and eating it. They're not wanting to crush all those fanfics out there, but they also want to progress things. Seems like that.
Basically, it's leave it open, and then we'll let you guys run with it.
So do we think they should have definitively made a statement?
No. It's actually pretty nice the way they did it, just like how they did with Scootaloo.
Yeah, but the thing I would say is if you're going to go so far as to say, oh, Scootaloo can't fly, or these guys are related, if you're going to say, well, actually, we don't know, you haven't really said anything.
I was about to say, it cheapens it a little bit to me, but
I would disagree with that vehemently, because, once again, that brings us back to the secondary moral that I was pointing out earlier, that family isn't about blood relations, and I think saying yes or no would have probably cheapened that moral, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's also important to note that there is a bit of a difference between Scootaloo's situation and Pinkie Pie's in this episode, because Scootaloo will eventually find out as she gets older whether or not she will eventually be able to fly. With Pinkie Pie, we do not know now, but it is entirely possible that we can find out through other means. The information is there, we just can't see it.
Is it harsh of me to actually be happy to see Pinkie Pie showing another emotion other than complete overwhelming happiness at the end of this episode?
Yeah, that's quite good. I enjoyed that. Yeah, she wasn't written to be unbelievably happy at everything that was occurring forever, which is good.
Yeah, which makes her a more tolerable and believable character.
Like, yes, this means something to you, I can see it.
She still keeps the over-the-top elements that make her Pinkie Pie, but there's more depth to her. Do
you mean her mane and tail, the fact that she can use it to hold the camera and take a picture too?
I'd say those are more visual gags. What I'm talking about more is her actual portrayal of her personality, because she does still keep the over-the-top aspects to her personality, but, once again, there is depth displayed there.
Yeah.
I liked that she was obsessed with making a scrapbook of slightly rubbish photos because nothing says family to me like a scrapbook of slightly rubbish photos.
Agreed.
But yeah, she had some really great lines. Like, I mean, when she made that on the train, on the cart ride over, and I think Applejack was like, "When did you have the time to do that?" And she's like, "When you're family, you make time."
Yeah.
Just the comedy timing on that was brilliant.
That was brilliant, yeah.
Speaking of the comedy, what did we think of that in this episode? Because obviously with Pinkie Pie being a big character in the episode, comedy is going to be a very big part of it. And I really enjoyed the comedy in this episode. It was one of the first times in the show I can remember laughing uproariously at a joke, which was the long panning shot over the outside of the cave.
That was great.
Yes.
It's typical, it's the perfect example of conservation of detail.
Best indescribably horrible monster ever.
Because they didn't need to show anything, it just worked really well in that, in my opinion at least.
It's different to Polsky. Polsky does a lot of visual gags, which means that he's obviously going to have to be scripting those. I feel more, I'm not sure how it is, Levenger's purposefully written it so that we don't see anything. Most of her humor is in the timing, which is all going to be down to the animation studio.
Timing and imagination, pretty much.
Yep. Okay, does anyone have anything else they want to add?
How was the animation for that song?
It's lovely.
It was really
It's a good
cool.
song. There were apples to the core. I think that Racist Barn has officially been discarded.
Yeah.
Applejack now has a good song.
And it's not an Applejack song, it's an Apple Family song. But yes, it was a bloody good song. I thoroughly enjoyed the song. I will say the animation on it kind of stretched the plausible cartoon physics for me for the shots from the front where they're all dancing while Big Mac's pulling the caravan.
Yeah, there's something about the animation at like the very start of the song where Applejack and Granny Smith were like swaying across the entire cart. I thought, wow, that's a bit strange.
I like that. I liked all that smooth animation. I thought it was really cool and sort of showed that they put in a lot of effort into that song.
For me, though, it was the sort of dance motions from the front. They looked very smooth and well animated, but it didn't really work for the rest of the show's animation style. For me, it didn't gel with the rest of that, basically.
It was kind of interesting to see the finished product of that song because I remember watching that song as an animatic from the San Diego Comic-Con panel and just wondering how they were going to pull that off. Because it is very different seeing an animatic and then seeing the finished product.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I actually really enjoyed how they pulled off the dancing animation and the transitions especially during the song.
And one more thing I'll say about the song. I don't know how many of you guys heard it, but Big Mac was singing. He was harmonizing.
Yes, he was. Big Mac sang along. That's brilliant.
He just didn't get his own verse, which was disappointing.
Yeah, he did. He got
his verse.
Yeah, those were his verses. Yup.
That's not a verse.
You know what? Why don't you just shut your mouth? It was his verse, okay? That's the most we're gonna get, so why don't you just be happy about it?
Little Gags, did anyone else think of Oregon Trail the whole time?
Yes.
Actually, because no one died of dysentery.
One repeated gag I did rather enjoy myself was the eagle.
Yes, the eagle. It took the fish, then the duck.
I laughed too much at that stupid duck.
Everyone loves the duck.
That duck's now immortal in canon.
Yep.
The internet is already saying duck is now canon immortal and Trixie will fight it.
Oh boy.
Wait, is this a duck that's appeared before? Because I might have...
It's the duck that stole the wheel and then got taken by an eagle.
It came back from that eagle attack quite quick, so everyone's like, oh, clearly Super Duck.
Oh. It's the doctor. Sorry, I can't resist a terrible pun.
One thing that I noticed about this episode that hasn't really been brought up yet is the fact that the pairing between Applejack and Pinkie Pie hasn't really been done before.
That's true. We haven't really seen anything of the two of them together.
There have been a few off scenes, like in the last roundup where they're together in the cherry orchard and Pinkie Pie was weaponized against Applejack, but but for the most part, they haven't really interacted as a pair the way that Applejack and Rainbow Dash or Applejack and Rarity or Twilight and anybody else have.
It's nice to have an episode which confirms that Applejack doesn't hate Pinkie Pie.
It's also good in that it sets up the possibility, in my mind at least, that they're going to use this season to explore a bit more of those sort of relationships as well. The ones that haven't been explored as much. And massive props to them because they've seen something that they haven't done yet, and that can be done pretty well.
If anything, as far as we know, them being all friends, it could be assumed that they all hang out at different times, but the episodes are just showing that yes, they do actually hang out at individual points.
Yeah, there's been writers talking about how they like to imply that a lot happens in between the episodes, where they actually do things that are normal, like eat cake together, instead of just getting attacked by chimeras or something.
I was about to say it's kind of funny to imply that they do a lot between the episodes, because apparently season 1, the start of it through to the start of season 4, is just 1 year. They must lead very busy lives.
Well, they don't sit around like us eating crisps. They're horses. They go out and they do things.
Yeah, they don't have TV or internet to distract them. Unless
anyone has anything else to add, I think this episode's tapped out.
Yeah, one thing I will say, once again, reiterate the point. Welcome to the story team, Natasha Levenger. That was a great introduction to a writer.
Well done.
Every new writer has made absolute solid gold. All right, this was the Heroic Review. My panel today was BrainedbySaucepans.
Goodbye.
Goombasa.
Stay warm, everybody.
Greg.
Long days and pleasant nights, friends.
Grey.
See y'all later.
PDK.
Annyeong.
Reverb.
Farewell, and thanks for listening.
Swedely.
It's dark in here.
And Webshoter.
See you in the future.
I was your moderator, Deadlyreg. Thank you for listening, and join us next week when we discuss yet more poems.